Google has just launched its secret weapon. Just a few days ago, the industry-leading search engine company unveiled its chatbot to compete against the growing success of ChatGPT. Since the launch of ChatGPT, Google realized that its revenues could be in serious trouble. So less than 3 months later, they announced the launch of their own ChatGPT-style AI called Bard. But will Bard be able to compete against Microsoft's chatbot? Stay to the end to find out the answer. Bard is an experimental artificial intelligence language model capable of generating human-sounding responses to prompts or questions. It was announced by Google CEO Sundar Pichai on Google's The Keyword blog after a long time of rumors. Bard is built on Google's powerful conversational language model, LaMDA, also known as Language Model for Dialogue Applications. Unlike ChatGPT, Sundar Pichai mentioned that Bard will initially only be available to a few trusted testers. So we have to wait some time before getting our hands on this AI. However, the Bard announcement gave us clear ideas about what the chatbot would look like, with examples very similar to how ChatGPT works. That's why some people are wondering if Bard will be just another ChatGPT. So if Google doesn't want to disappear in the face of ChatGPT, it will have to create a more innovative product than its competitor. Otherwise, it could end up facing millions in losses. When ChatGPT launched its product on November 30th, 2022, it did so after a long development period. Unfortunately, Google did not have as much time for the Bard launch. In fact, they had less than 3 months to create a product that would rival the industry's most popular chatbot. However, Google is not a novice company in artificial intelligence. Without going any further, the architecture on which ChatGPT is based was originally created by Google's research team. Therefore, there is nothing that ChatGPT can do that Google has not already done. In other words, Google is now trying to overcome its biggest commercial threat, which ironically is built on Google's technology. That's why when Google announced its own chatbot, it didn't take a second to remind the whole world that Google's research base was the basis for many other generative AI applications. After all, the birth of ChatGPT would not have been possible without them. And given that Google has the architecture that made ChatGPT possible, they have been able to emulate this success with the creation of Bard. But even if ChatGPT owes its birth to Google, Microsoft's chatbot has had years to evolve into a unique product. That's why many people don't believe Google could have launched a better product in such a short time. Fortunately, we have evidence to prove that Bard could eventually dethrone ChatGPT. As you may recall, the LaMDA technology that powers Bard AI is similar to GPT-3, so Google is not a newcomer in the race to create a general-purpose AI chatbot. On the contrary, they have been building similar technology for years before we even knew about it, so they may have a significant advantage over OpenAI. On the other hand, what ChatGPT needs most urgently right now is data to train its chatbot. But when it comes to data, no company can beat Google. Google currently holds 80% of the search market and is the most visited website on the entire internet. Although Microsoft has its own browser, which is already planning to incorporate ChatGPT technology, it is no match for Google's browser, which is still the preferred choice of millions of people. Since training conversational models like GPT-3 and LaMDA requires data, Google has plenty of stored information to create the perfect chatbot. But of course, it's not yet entirely clear whether Google plans to integrate live data or web information into Bard's responses. But if this were to happen, Google would have a significant advantage over ChatGPT and Microsoft, since Bard could provide up-to-date responses. Meanwhile, ChatGPT remains limited to event-related information until 2021, the chatbot's current data training limit. Even if Google is preparing its counterattack, this doesn't mean that Microsoft will stand idly by and watch its biggest competitor take all its money. Before Microsoft's purchase, ChatGPT had already aroused the curiosity of millions of users. However, when Microsoft decided to buy 49% of ChatGPT for $10 billion, many tech companies realized the potential of this chatbot. Although ChatGPT was an interesting project, its developer company, OpenAI, did not have the money to make ChatGPT grow fast enough to become a threat to Google. Nevertheless, when Microsoft discovered ChatGPT, they didn't hesitate to buy a large part of the company to incorporate its technology into their own search engine, Microsoft Bing, and dethrone Google. In this way, they gained a huge competitive advantage that will allow Bing users to find information in a matter of seconds. So instead of asking Google a question and searching through thousands of websites, you could just interact with the Bing chatbot and find your answer. In other words, it would no longer be necessary to read a 1,000 or 1,500 word article to find information that would require a long search time. Instead, we would be able to explore millions of data hosted on the internet with the help of an AI that will take care of processing all that content for us in less than a second. This is why Microsoft wanted to invest in ChatGPT before any other company. And since ChatGPT now has enough money to grow by leaps and bounds, Google has no choice but to keep working on the development of Bard to put a brake on Microsoft. The second reason Microsoft invested in OpenAI is that ChatGPT requires enormous computational power to keep it running. Since this is one of the highest costs of the chatbot, Microsoft has agreed to become the primary OpenAI provider. With this, Microsoft has closed one of the best technology deals in history, a deal that could put Google in serious trouble. However, Google was quicker than Microsoft could foresee when it launched Bard. Had they taken a few years, ChatGPT could have evolved without fear that any other chatbot would present competition. Unfortunately, Microsoft forgot to consider that Google is a company known for its innovation. It has the capital and the team of experts needed to develop a chatbot like Bard in a record time. That's why as soon as Google felt threatened, it decided to crush its rival before it had time to grow. It's these quick decisions that have made Google one of the biggest companies in the world. Due to the demos provided by Google, it is not entirely clear whether Bard will exist as a standalone rapid response web interface like ChatGPT. We know that Google Bard will allow us to search queries simply by generating a short text summary of your results. We also know that Google Bard will work by scanning the internet and learning associated words, phrases, and ideas. Once the software is trained by scientists, we will be able to access Google Bard and see if it's the revolutionary chatbot it promises to be. So far, screenshots shared by Google show how Bard will work in practice. Users can type full sentences or questions into its search engine to get a snippet of text as a response. So it's quite likely that Google will eventually incorporate Bard into most of its products to continue to rule over the other search engines. In the same way that Microsoft is trying to incorporate ChatGPT into Bing. We also know that ChatGPT will be the biggest competitor Bard will face. One misstep, and Google could end up being replaced by its biggest rival, Microsoft. Many people think it's unlikely that ChatGPT will eventually displace Google. However, history proves to us that all great companies eventually die. Of course, this doesn't mean that Google or Microsoft will die in the next 5 years. But because technology evolves so fast, what we consider modern today will be obsolete tomorrow. For example, we all use Google because we consider it the best search engine on the market. But what if another search engine came along that was more complete and functional? Consumers are loyal to a product or service until they find something better. That's why Google and Microsoft have spent decades as the first companies to make their products obsolete. So after ChatGPT came along, Google couldn't afford a second to let its rival grow up and steal its customers. It would be like owning a pizzeria and letting your neighbor, who just put another pizzeria across the street, steal all your customers. You would have to compete with a better price, pizza, or service to satisfy your customers. That's why I'm not entirely surprised by the launch of Bard AI. Sadly, since Google had little time to prepare, they made a fatal mistake during the launch of Bard. Which is faster, an action or a reaction? The launch of Bard was Google's reaction to GPT's arrival on the market. So regardless of how good Bard ends up being, we can't forget that Google had less time to prepare the initial version of its chatbot. But while the company rushed through the development of Bard, it made a big mistake that ended up costing them $100 billion. A few days ago, Google shared a GIF showing Bard answering the question, "What new discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope can I tell my 9-year-old about?" In response, Bard offered 3 bullet points, including one claiming that the telescope took the first images of a planet outside our solar system. Unfortunately, some astronomers on Twitter were able to identify this error quickly, so controversy soon followed. According to astronomers, the first image of an exoplanet was taken in 2004, other than the one in the images as indicated on the NASA website. Even Bruce McIntosh, director of the University of California Observatories at UC Santa Cruz, pointed out this error. According to The Verge, the error and the experts' objections were first discovered by Reuters and New Scientist. Even if artificial intelligence has come further than we would have dreamed, they still have a long way to go to perfect itself, especially as they confidently share incorrect facts. This is a problem that both ChatGPT and Bard share, the tendency to state incorrect information as fact. Because they are essentially auto-completed systems, many of these chatbots end up making up information to provide an answer, rather than consulting a database of proven facts to answer questions. In other words, they are trained to analyze patterns and determine which word follows the other in a given sentence, so they are probabilistic rather than deterministic. That's why a leading AI professor considers chatbots great nonsense generators. Of course, this doesn't mean that Google and Microsoft aren't doing their best to correct this issue. However, we must consider that the internet is rife with false and misleading information and incorrect data that greatly hampers the work of chatbots. Unfortunately, this issue is compounded by Microsoft and Google's desire to use these tools as search engines. That's why chatbots' responses take on the authority of a possible all-knowing machine. So if people don't start questioning the information they get from chatbots, we could face another big problem. Today, most people don't even question what they see on TV, so it would be too much to expect them to start questioning chatbots. The second drawback of chatbots is that they often provide an answer to what we should consider an absolute truth. Meanwhile, today's search engines provide a large index of websites where we can compare different sources of information to draw conclusions. This is what makes the internet so powerful. Now, imagine what would happen if companies, politicians, or anyone with power and influence used their money to make people believe whatever they wanted. While we would still have access to various websites to draw conclusions, most people would be content to read the summary explanation of chatbots like Bard and ChatGPT. Why bother researching when you can let a bot do all the hard work for you? People are lazy by nature, so if chatbots fail to differentiate the right information from the wrong, we could end up with millions of uninformed people. And that is an extremely dangerous thing. Misinformation is a much more dangerous weapon than a lack of information. Imagine if, instead of not knowing the treatment for a disease, you followed a treatment that ended up killing you. After Bard's big mistake, Microsoft has tried to avoid making the same mistake during the demonstration of its new search engine Bing. However, the company disclaimer states Bing is powered by AI, so surprises and mistakes are possible. They have also transferred the responsibility to each user to verify the answers they get and provide their feedback to help the chatbot continue to evolve, thus relieving themselves of all responsibility. Now, wouldn't it be more work for us to corroborate all the answers provided by the chatbots than doing a simple Google search? The answer is yes. That's why, although Google Bard and ChatGPT are very interesting projects, they are still at too early a stage to be considered a real solution. Fortunately, Google researchers are already working on a solution that would eradicate this problem at its root. According to Google spokesperson Jane Park, the company is working on a program called Trusted Tester, which will allow it to combine external feedback with its own internal testing to ensure that Bard's responses are as accurate and reliable as possible. So, if Google incorporates these changes, it could put ChatGPT on the ropes. The main difference between Bard and ChatGPT is where they get their information from. While ChatGPT is limited to collecting information from up to 2 years ago, Bard will continuously pull information from the internet, so it will always have access to the latest information. Therefore, Bard will have more data to collect real-time information and will be one step ahead of ChatGPT. The next difference is that Bard uses its Lambda for dialogue applications, while ChatGPT uses GPT 3.5. Since Lambda was built on an open-source network to understand natural language, it's trained to find patterns in sentences and between words to create dialogues versus individual words. On the other hand, Bard will create more chunks of information, while ChatGPT will create content in a single message. Finally, we have to determine which chatbot is the most accurate, but first, we'll have to wait until Bard is publicly available to see which AI will end up ruling the internet. Yet, for those who are curious, there is a very interesting thread on Twitter created by Henk van As, in which he compares the answers he got when asking the same question on Google and ChatGPT. Although the comparison is not entirely fair, since Google has not yet incorporated Bard into its search engine, it can help us better understand what answers we might expect to find between a traditional search engine and an AI-powered one. Even if artificial intelligence had great potential to revolutionize the internet, some people doubt whether we need to have a chatbot in our search engines. In my opinion, if you need an answer to a simple question such as, "What is the capital of France?" or "What time is it in Moscow?" you don't need a chatbot to answer these questions. However, if you'll need the answer to a more in-depth approach or simply understand a complex topic, having the help of artificial intelligence could make all the difference. According to Google, Bard can synthesize ideas, extract complex information, and offer different perspectives. And all this while still providing us with the same list of links we're used to. So if you didn't want to let a chatbot influence your opinion, you could simply ignore it and do your own research, as you always have. Even so, Google has done more than invest in the development of Bard. Why will Google eventually kill ChatGPT? As you may know, other artificial intelligence companies are developing their own chatbots. Among them, we have ChatGPT's next rival, Claude. Since Google is not known for leaving things to chance or luck, they have invested $300 million in the company behind this chatbot, Anthropic. So even if Bard wasn't a success, they would have a plan B to kill ChatGPT once and for all. But that's not the end of Google's grand strategy. When they bought Anthropic, they did so knowing that the company was founded by former OpenAI researchers. So just as OpenAI learned from Google, Google could learn from former OpenAI researchers. Currently, Claude is in closed beta, but on the IA Scale blog, you can read a technical comparison between this chatbot and ChatGPT. I'll leave you the link in the description. Like ChatGPT, Claude is based on reinforcement learning, but uses a concrete approach called constitutional AI. In addition, analysts point out that Claude seems more aware of what it can't do than ChatGPT. For example, when asked about a complex mathematical calculation, ChatGPT gives an imprecise answer without hesitation, while Claude recognizes its limitations, making it a much more reliable chatbot. Some people also point out that Claude is funnier and more natural at expressing itself than ChatGPT. Now, imagine what Google would be able to do if it merged its artificial intelligence expertise and large database with Claude's natural language. The merger between the two chatbots could result in a version superior to ChatGPT. So Google has everything it needs right now to dethrone Microsoft's chatbot. In other words, if ChatGPT doesn't start doing something about it, it could fall behind Google. But what do you think about it? Do you think Google will dethrone ChatGPT or lose the war of chatbots? We'll be reading you in the comments.